Hi, this is Nick from Paranormal Research Investigators UK. Next in the series of the podcasts that we're doing about the senses, effectively, and this one is going to be touch. As usual, Andy Wilson is here to provide his regarded and considered opinion on the subject of touch and the paranormal. So, as usual, take it away, Andy.
Right, good afternoon, Nick. Today we're going to talk a bit about paranormal and the experience of touch and how people perceive the paranormal through their senses of their skin. I just want to go through some points about what I've observed and some of the reports that people have said. And I'll start by saying that when people claim to be touched by an entity, they can report experiencing cold hands. Mm-hmm. There's usually a very coldness to the touch that they feel. Scratches, people, say they've been scratched, and what's interesting, when they do get scratched, sometimes, quite frequently, they can be in threes. They get 3 scratches.
Okay,
and,
interesting.
So is that a entity with 3 fingers, or is it what they claim to be? Is it the mock and the Holy Trinity? Who knows? So scratches and marks can appear on the skin and welt up, and they can develop slowly and get bigger with time as well. And there's been 1 or 2 cases where people have video cameraed a welt appearing, and it's very remarkable to watch, with how this happens. Yeah. It would be very hard to fake.
Yeah, I mean, just an interesting point. My experience, if you're in the garden and you catch yourself on a rose bush, you might get a scratch, but that welt does sort of develop, doesn't it? It's not there immediately, no. So that would indicate that there is some sort of physical bodily reaction to some sort of contact.
Yeah. And scratches can appear underneath clothing. So it's not like it's bare skin.
Sure.
When they lift the shirt up or they pull the trousers down. I'm not recommending you pull your trousers down when you go in these places, but people...
Well, not for the public.
But people can, claim they've been scratched through the clothing, which is interesting.
Yes, yes.
They report they feel a burning sensation on the skin, while they're being scratched. They say there's a heat sensation on the skin after being scratched, or maybe they were grabbed. They can claim they feel a heat sensation after that.
But again, that would probably be about the same for any situation. Again, it goes back to the rosebush thing. If you caught yourself on something like that, afterwards, part of that healing process presumably is that sensation of heat in the scratch. But anyway,
yeah. So people claim to be pushed, poked, slapped. They can develop bruising. After they've been grabbed by a hand, they can leave red hand marks on the body. People have claimed to have been dragged across the room.
Yeah.
So that is quite physical.
Yes. Yeah.
People have said that they've received bite marks, and you can see the teeth indentations in the skin.
Okay.
From an entity. That's interesting.
It is, yeah.
That's
I wonder if it's Dracula, like, isn't it?
Yeah, if it's on the neck, yeah.
Yes.
But it's a bit like when police can identify a victim from the teeth records. I wonder if you can identify an entity from the teeth imprints.
It's an interesting thing. I mean, the police records as they develop, perhaps one day they'll be able to cross-match it or reference it. But we'll wait for that one.
Leave fingerprint marks on the skin. Yeah. So some people feel static electricity, and it gives them goosebumps and the hair stand up. On that's the sensation they feel with the paranormal. Some people have claimed to have been drowned in the bath.
Drowned in the bath.
Well, not
attempted.
Attempted drowning in the bathtub. Yeah, so they've been pushed in the water. That would be quite scary.
I should think so. Yeah.
Cobweb sensation.
Yes.
That's a common one. People claim to feel as if they're walking through cobwebs. Sometimes they probably are, but other times it's the sensation of, like, I don't know, thin threads or something they're walking through.
I mean, again, I'm a bit sceptical there because, sorry to go back to the garden, but because our garden's a bit of a jungle.
That rose bush is bloody fierce, but then you've got that, it's not tripping, is it?
But I'm thinking that you walk down, especially the path, first thing in the morning, and it seems as though you're well, not exactly battling through cobwebs, but the number of single strands that there are. And that's going to apply anywhere. I mean, it could be in a garden, it could be in a building. So I'm sometimes a bit sceptical and just wonder if people are being a bit hypersensitive to the situation, and they can't see the cobweb afterwards because they've broken it. But anyway, it's just a thought.
And some people claim they can feel someone blowing on them, when you go...
Yes.
And I've experienced this twice in short time periods, actually. It was quite interesting. I was just lying on bed. It was daytime. I wasn't asleep, but I think I was reading a book, and I felt someone as if they were blowing in my face, like a gentle blow. And I, of course, immediately got up, looked for the windows, looked for any kind of source of a draft. I couldn't really see one, but it was very distinct, and it was enough to make me feel like, oh my God, it just literally felt like someone was blowing in my face for about 5 seconds, and then it stopped. There was nothing else.
Yes.
And then that happened again a month later when I moved to a different house. I was doing my what do you call it? My dissertation. So my contractor ran out at the student house. Had to move temporarily into another house for 3 months. And again, I was just reading, and I felt this blowing sensation right in my face the second time.
Yes.
It was as if to say, here I am again. As if to say it followed me.
Well, just wondering, sort of amorous intention there. It wasn't trying to...
Well, I'm hoping it was female, to be honest. I'm hoping whatever it was female, and I hope it maybe it fancied my aura. Maybe I got a sexy aura that red hot with passion. Maybe I don't know.
Who knows?
But yeah. So so people do feel the paranormal through their skin. And again, because the brain is so wired that you might misperceive things, a bit like the visual stimulation, you've always got to wonder, is your brain doing something to you that is making you think this is happening?
Well, I must say that I was in a pub with a friend in a very sort of... Well, there weren't many people in the bar, and I was just sort of across the table from a friend, and we're talking, and I certainly had the sensation of somebody putting their hand on my shoulder, more or less to draw my attention to something, and I turned round expecting to see somebody there, standing there, and sure enough there wasn't, and I thought, oh well, that's it, it's just me, muscle spasm, and then, I don't know, a few moments later, exactly the same thing happens again. Your brain, or certainly my brain at the time, interpreted that as being somebody sort of trying to get my attention, putting their hand on my shoulder. I can't really say it was a paranormal experience. I just put it down to the fact that it was actually a muscle spasm. But of course, my brain at the time, you're sitting in a pub, even an old bar, so you think, oh, it's the pub ghost, and all that kind of stuff. And you talk to people about it afterwards, and they reinforce that story. But it's one, certainly, it was a surprise when it happened at the time. It wasn't just a sort of weak sensation. It was quite sort of almost intense. But as I say, you do build a story up. So a bit sceptical about that one.
Mm. Well, what I'm going to do, I'm going to now talk about some alternative explanations rather than thinking it's going to be paranormal.
Surely.
What else could it be?
Yeah.
And to do this, I'm going to use information that is from the Association for the Scientific Study of Anomalous Phenomena. And I'll dare you to say that when you've had a few. And
I'll just say ASAP. Just say
ASAP, yeah. And basically, there's a charity that's very, very good with information. It's very detailed. They're very professional. I recommend anyone to join them. We'll do a link on visual link for people to look at, and then they can have a look on the website itself. It's only £15 a year if you want to join.
You're getting paid to say this.
Well, I'll bill them later. but on there's really good articles, and they do talk a bit about cold spots and what they might be, and what else there could be. So, and this person who's done a lot of these articles, Maurice Townsend, he's been one of the founder members of ASAP, and he's got this information free on the internet on the website, and I recommend anybody to read it because it will really increase their understanding. So what I'm going to do is, he basically states that what is a cold spot, and basically what most people think as cold spots are small areas, usually a lot smaller than the room, that feel significantly colder than the surrounding area. And then people might say, well, that's the ghost. If you put your hand there and feel the cold, then that can be the ghost. Some cold spots are always felt in the same place, while others seem to appear and disappear at different locations. So rather than just think of it straight away as a sign that you felt something paranormal, you feel this coldness, what you need to consider is drafts and convection, about how air moves around a room.
Certainly, I'd say cold from windows. I mean, it's amazing the amount of sort of cold air, or the amount of lack of heat, rather, I guess, that can be generated from window. I know in one investigation, people saying, "Oh, it's very cold here," and I was saying, "Well, yeah, it's January, freezing conditions outside, and you're standing by a very large window. It's the cold from outside, effectively." But anyway.
And what Morris says is that one thing you have to remember is that air is always moving around.
Right.
So what happens is the surfaces of different objects can have different temperatures to others, and heat will be exchanged between objects to equalise the room temperature.
Yeah.
And this is done mainly through what's called convection. The airflow will this is when airflow can be warm air, which is less dense, and this rises towards the ceiling, cools, and then drops back down to the floor. Humid air is lighter than dry air, so a draft can be generated in a humid room, particularly if it's also hot. Things to think about also are the power of suggestion. I remember being on a year. When I first started doing these ghost investigations, I went and someone was saying, "There's a cold spot. There's a cold spot. Feel it." And I immediately put my hand to that location where his was, and I could feel a cold spot.
Yeah.
However, I was a bit naive then. I didn't look for ceiling for any kind of air vents, or the wall for any air vents, and. And was that power of suggestion? Was because he said it, and then two other people confirmed it. Then I put my hand there. It's about the only time I've ever felt a cold spot. I've never felt another cold spot since. However, this house I used to live in, certainly I could feel and sense a heaviness at night.
Okay.
And it was a very cold house, very cold.
Right.
Me and my lodger friend, we used to do the fridge test. Our hands were warmer inside the fridge than they were outside. That's how cold it got. Yeah. And we did have a lot of activity in that house. But I don't know if that is linked. Yeah. Again, Thomas Fusco, who does Behind the Cosmic Veil, he talks about space-time bubbles. Yes. And if a bubble emerges, it can cause a vacuum with the pressure from the outside the bubble and the pressure inside the bubble. And if this interdimensional bubble emerges, the coldness you feel can be that vacuum, basically.
Yes. It's something I would just say about in investigations. This idea that the temperature's dropping. One thing I would say is that it seems to me that people are standing on the spot for a long time. It could just be a natural drop in the temperature for sure, but if you're not moving about, you will find that your body is feeling colder, and I suspect that that's a lot of that's the cause of a lot of people. They stand in one spot and they say, it's definitely getting colder, I can feel it getting colder, when in fact it's just their bodies. It's just a natural reaction to not moving about.
Yeah. Well, I don't have anything else on the sensation of touch. I mean, I think you've had an anomalous.
Well, I think I don't know. Again, it's like everything else. One of the stories I come out with, and I have many. I'm sure I'm boring my friends most of the time, but it was my daughter's flat. It was again. Here we go. I'm embellishing the story now, which is a common fault. But it was a converted Victorian school. It was a one-bedroom flat. My wife was in the flat with me. We were sort of house-sitting. My daughter was at university at the time, and I think she was being hooked up to the internet, so we had to be there for the engineer. It was a kitchenette and living room, as one, with a separate bedroom and bathroom. And we had the two dogs with us, but they weren't meant to be in there, so we'd taken a basket for each of them, and they were told to sit still in their baskets. We didn't want them walking about. And I'm sitting on a sofa with my back to my wife and the two dogs, and I suddenly had the sensation of something walking or brushing past both my legs. It wasn't just one leg. It was both my legs, and it was like I could feel it moving, sort of swishing across the legs. So from one side to the other, and I just assumed it was one of the dogs. And when I looked round, they were both, as they should have been, sitting in their baskets. Again, it wasn't a sensation of cold; it just felt contact. What was all that about? It wasn't like the hand on the shoulder, which we put down to a muscle spasm, because it affected both of the legs. So I just don't know. I mean, no visual contact or anything like that, but it does make you think, doesn't it?
Right.
Anyway, I think that's about it. That wraps that up. So thanks for listening, and we'll be producing another podcast as soon as we can. So thanks for listening.
We'll keep in touch.
Absolutely. Yeah. See you soon. Bye.
What?